Welcome back to Movie Bites. Today, I am going to narrate a psychological horror film from 2016, titled, A Cure for Wellness. A man named Morris is working late in his office. He starts to feel pain in his chest, and goes to get some water. He then suffers a heart attack, and collapses on the floor. As he dies, we meet Mr. Lockhart on a train, headed to work. He is very much into his work, and seems rude and careless to others. Lockhart goes to a meeting with his bosses, Green and Wilson. They review a note, sent by the company's CEO, Roland Pembroke, who was supposed to be away for 2 weeks at a spa in the Swiss Alps, but has not returned since, and as the note shows, he appears to have had some sort of breakdown. Green shows Lockhart an illegal document that is now under investigation by the SEC. Lockhart is ordered to bring Pembroke back, unless he wants to face the penalty for his actions. In a flashback, we see Lockhart visiting his mother, at a retirement home. She carries a small music box with a ballerina, that she says, is dreaming. Only she doesn't know that she is in a dream. Lockhart's mother dies, and is cremated before his departure. He keeps the ballerina. Upon arriving in Switzerland, Lockhart takes a ride from a cab driver named Enrico. While riding up the hill to the spa, a villager chucks a drink at the car. Enrico explains, the villagers have a bad history with the people living on the hill. There is a story of a baron who wanted to protect his bloodline by marrying his sister. After learning she was infertile, the baron began performing experiments on the villagers, which led to them revolting and burning the baron's sister alive. Lockhart arrives at the spa, but visiting hours have just ended. He finds Pembroke in the bathhouse. Lockhart urges Pembroke to go home with him, but he appears fine, and is not interested in leaving. Lockhart leaves with Enrico, and tells him to take him to a hotel, to make a phone call, since he has no service on the hill. Another flashback shows a young Lockhart, in a car with his father. His father is driving over a bridge on a rainy day. As he listens on the radio that stocks have plummeted, and a bunch of jobs are gone, he pulls over, and walks over to the edge of the bridge. Lockhart watched, as his father jumped to his death. On the way to the hotel, Enrico hits a deer, which gets stuck in the windshield and causes the car to swerve off the road, and crash into a ditch. Lockhart awakens 3 days later in a room at the spa. He meets the spa's director, Dr. Heinrich Vollmer, who points out that he suffered a broken leg as a result of the accident. Vollmer says he has notified Green about the accident. He tells Lockhart to try out the spa's treatments. During his stay, he is put to stay in a room where he hears the toilet handle rattling by itself. Lockhart also takes a drink of water, and finds a parasitic creature floating in the glass. Lockhart meets 3 patients, Frank, Ron, and Watkins. Watkins enjoys crossword puzzles. The 3 of them seem perfectly pleased with their treatments. Lockhart then meets Hannah, a young woman who considers herself a special case. She, and several other patients, plus Vollmer and other staff members, are often seen taking vitamin droplets from a blue bottle. Lockhart undergoes treatment. Inside a water tank, the water fills up, and the orderly, tending to Lockhart, gets distracted. The tank fills up with eels, causing him to panic. He has his breathing tube pulled off by an eel. He nearly drowns, until he gets the tank to open and spill the water out. Watkins relays the baron's story to Lockhart. When he brings it up to her, she mentions that the spa was built on the remains of his castle, after the villagers burned it down. Watkins says that the baby was cut out of the baron's sister's womb and then thrown into an aquifer, but it survived. Lockhart gives Hannah his ballerina figurine, in exchange for a bike ride into town. The two go together, and stop at the local tavern. Lockhart buys himself and Hannah beers, and runs into Enrico, who survived the crash, and has bought a new car, with the money the spa gave him. Hannah stays to listen to music, and dances by herself, in front of the other patrons. Lockhart comes across a barn with a mute child, who is drawing the castle fire. His father, Peter, approaches Lockhart. Lockhart asks Peter about the spa and its history. Peter then goes to a cow that is ailing and is about to die. He cuts the cow's stomach open, and out spills a stillborn calf and some eels. When Lockhart joins Hannah at the bar, he sees a punk dancing next to Hannah. Lockhart tries to get him away from her, but the punk attacks Lockhart. He is saved by Vollmer, who arrives to pick up Lockhart and Hannah. Lockhart gets in touch with Green, who demands to know what happened with him and Pembroke. Lockhart mentions Vollmer called them about the accident, but Green knows nothing about the accident until Lockhart just mentioned it. He orders Lockhart to return to New York with Pembroke within the next 24 hours. Lockhart's tooth comes loose, and he must pull it out himself. He brings it to a staff member, who places it in water. Lockhart then goes off to continue looking for answers. He sneaks past the staff. As he goes through several wings, he comes across one room, where several patients including Pembroke are kept inside water tanks, appearing dead. He also finds an underground area with a pool, where dead bodies are dumped in and fed to eels. One of those dead bodies happens to be Ms. Watkins. When Lockhart tries to return to his room, he is found by the caretaker, along with Vollmer and another staff member. Lockhart mentions the issue with his tooth. He is taken into a room and strapped down, and has a drill forced through his front tooth. Lockhart escapes the spa, and heads into town, to report Vollmer's experiments to a police officer. Vollmer and his staff member arrive, to bring Lockhart back. Lockhart mentions the tanks, and how he saw Pembroke. Pembroke then emerges alive and well, backing up Vollmer's claims, that Lockhart threatened Pembroke, to bring him back to New York by force, if necessary. Lockhart has no choice, but to return with Vollmer. After undergoing more treatments, Lockhart starts to act and think like Pembroke. He believes he is not well, and must stay for a cure. He has a moment of clarity, while writing a note to his employers, where he thinks to himself, "No man can unsee the truth." Meanwhile, Hannah is using the pool, and has her first period. Eels start swimming near her, but then, they start swimming in a perfect circle around her. Lockhart then breaks a glass, and uses a shard to cut open his cast, revealing his leg was never broken. He runs out of his room, and finds Hannah. She is panicked, and hits Lockhart in the face, as he tries to help her. Hannah runs and finds Vollmer in a room, where he is having dinner, with staff and some patients. Lockhart runs in, and starts to tell everyone that Vollmer is a liar, and the one responsible for everyone being sick, due to whatever is in the water, which is the reason for their teeth falling out, as a side effect. Patients start to stand, and Lockhart thinks they support him, but they slowly approach him, saying that they are unwell. They all crowd around Lockhart, until he passes out. Lockhart wakes up in a chamber, where he is immobile. Vollmer forces a tube down his throat, and puts an eel-filled liquid into his body, where the eels filter out the vitamins that Vollmer has all his patients take. Lockhart has his teeth fixed, and appears to be changed, just like the rest of the patients, stuck in a delusion that he is unwell. Vollmer throws a party that night, with the patients and staff. He even gives Hannah a new dress for the occasion. In his room, Lockhart starts to come to his senses. He recalls when Watkins told him about the Baron. He finds a portrait that was taken a while after the fire. Lockhart breaks the portrait, and uses a glass to magnify one subject in the picture, a man with bandages all over his face. What the portrait didn't show was the man holding hands with a little girl, Hannah. Vollmer brings Hannah into a room by the transfusion wing. There he has kept a portrait of his sister, who was also Hannah's mother. Vollmer ties Hannah to the bed, and prepares to rape her. Lockhart breaks out of his room, and first meets the caretaker, who attacks him, until Lockhart bludgeons him to death. Lockhart then finds Vollmer, and saves Hannah. Lockhart and Vollmer fight, wherein Vollmer pulls off the skin from his face, to reveal himself as the hideously scarred Baron. The vitamins have been keeping him and Hannah alive for well over a century. Lockhart leads Vollmer into a trap, where he dropped a bunch of fuel, leading Lockhart to set a fire. Vollmer catches fire, and then sets fire to the curtains, as he tries to extinguish himself. The fire then spreads up toward the rest of the castle. Lockhart tries to free Hannah, but Vollmer attacks him. Vollmer drags Lockhart near the eel pool, and prepares to kill him, but Hannah takes a shovel, and swings it down into Vollmer's head. He stumbles backwards, and falls into the pool, to become eel food. Lockhart and Hannah escape, just as the patients and staff flee the burning castle. They take Hannah's bike, and ride away on the road. They are stopped by a car. Green and Wilson step out, ordering Lockhart to get in the car. When they ask about Pembroke, Lockhart says he is gone. They tell him to get in again, but he refuses. Green asks Lockhart what's wrong with him. Lockhart responds that he is feeling much better. He and Hannah continue riding away into the night, with a sinister grin forming on Lockhart's face. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. It helps us a lot.